Today, we're covering the 5 essential CNC bits every beginner must have. We'll be showing live cuts, common mistakes, and I'll be giving you different tips to level up your CNC game. Let's get right into it. So the first essential bit that all beginners must have is a 1/4 inch down cut finisher. Now, if you've been an avid follower of the channel, you know that I have used this bit on a ton of projects. And when I mean I've used this bit, I have used this bit on my hobby CNCs, my industrial CNCs, and I've been using this for 9 years. So this bit I probably have the most experience with, and it's probably cut me out over $1 million of product. So lots of use here. That's why it's number one. It is the most important, and there is a couple different reasons why. So let's start cutting on the CNC, and I'll explain why while we're doing those cuts and afterwards to show you. Let's go. So we got our 1/4 inch down cut bit in our spindle. I'm gonna be using the alt mill today. I have really taken a liking to this machine, so if you're interested in the alt mill, link is in the description, and clicking that link does help out the channel. So we're gonna be using this bit to cut through some Baltic birch. And one thing I like about this bit, since it is a 2-flute finisher, it can cut through Baltic birch, MDF, plywood, hardwood, whatever you want, it can cut through. And so we're gonna be using this Baltic birch today because it is hard and it does show all the different nuances that I wanna show you today. So let's go. So the first thing this bit is really good at is cutting pockets. And so we're just gonna do a simple pocket into this Baltic birch right here to show you how it leaves that nice clean top edge. So if you don't know a lot about CNCs, the rapid rate is when that CNC picks up from the cut and goes to another position, and the alt mill is extremely fast and has a very fast rapid rate, so it's really jittery and really cool. Notice that all the chips stayed into the pocket. And so on your smaller CNCs, you're not gonna have a ton of dust collection. And if you had an upcut bit in here, all the chips would kind of fly out everywhere. And so that downcut bit is keeping all the chips kind of in this central location. So your dust collector can pick them up easier, or your shop vac. Another thing to note is because they're all in this pocket, right? That means that downward force was just causing everything to stay here. You're not gonna get that with an upcut. Now the last thing to note, don't blow that. Be sure you get a shop vac, guys. So the last thing to note is that see how nice and pretty these top edges are? You're not gonna get that with an upcut bit. Now I did coat all of my bits that we sell on CIC Workshop in a ZRN coating, and what that coating does is it makes the bits last longer and makes them not get as hot because of friction coefficients and all this other stuff. Just know that gold coating is for a reason. It's not just for show, and it does help out the bits. So the next thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna cut this R out right here, and what that's going to show is how good it is at profiling. And believe it or not, I'm not gonna add any tabs or anything like that to show the fact that whenever these downcut bits cut, it actually packs the chips in the cut path so tight that the piece can't really move. And since it is cutting and forcing all the pressure downwards, the piece is actually gonna get held into place. So notice how all those chips are holding it down. And so hopefully, I don't know if it's gonna move or not, but this downcut bit shouldn't want to move this piece too much. Now it could come flying at me as it's cutting. Let's see. Whew, okay. And so, yes, it did it correctly. So what happens is, because we have a downcut bit, even though, let me take this off. Even though we cut all the way through, I think I was yelling. What's all that yelling? Even though we cut all the way through the material, this thing didn't move because the downcut bit was holding it in place. And so now we have this piece of material with a clean pocket, a clean top edge, And since it is a down cut, you get little tiny frizzies here, but I didn't have to use any clamps. And I absolutely love that down cut bit for this exact reason. So we have a 1/2 inch pocket, 1/2 inch deep, and this 3/4 inch plywood is cut all the way out. Now, I like a 1 inch cutting length on my down cut bits, and that's the one that you get if you get it from CIC Workshop, because you may have a 7/8 inch thick material that you're gonna need to cut through, and that bit needs to be able to handle that. So the next essential bit is going to be this 1/4 inch down cut bit's little sister, an 1/8 inch down cut bit. And for the same reasons that 1/4 inch down cut is amazing, because it keeps all the chips tight and in the trenches, and it does a nice clean pocket, all those same reasons are gonna apply to this down cut bit right here, but there's a couple little nuances that I like particularly about this bit and why I created it this way. And so one, I like 1/8 inch bits with 1/4 inch shanks the most for 2 reasons. One is that I don't have to change out my collet nut very much. So if you have a 1/4 inch shank and an 1/8 inch bit, take out this one, put this one in, right? Because these do come in 1/8 inch shanks, but you know, I just like ease of use. The next thing is, I do like that it does provide a little bit of extra stability. Not a ton, but it does reduce a little bit of vibration because this is thicker and there's a little bit more surface area for that collet to hold on. And so if you can get an 1/8 inch bit with this 1/4 inch shank, it is a little bit better. Now, if you are getting value from this video, don't forget to like, subscribe. The whiteboard back over there is hopefully reminding you, but it does help out the channel, and we are trying to make this channel the #1 CNC channel on YouTube. And I really appreciate your support. So now I'm gonna put this 1/8 inch down cut into the spindle, and we're gonna do the exact same project. And I'm gonna show you all the little nuances that I really like about this bit over that 1/4 inch down cut bit. Let's go right into it. God, that alt mill is so like quick, man. Now, for reference, as this is cutting, it's not screaming as loud because it is an 1/8 inch bit, and I'm actually going the same speed as that 1/4 inch bit. Now, I probably should have ran that 1/4 inch bit faster, but this 1/8 inch bit is going at 100 inches a minute right now, and it's handling it. Super cool. So once again, all the chips are held in there, and you have this nice clean top edge. And so what I'm gonna do now is cut this all the way out, just like I did this one right here. Because this 1/8 inch bit has a 3/4 inch cutting length on it, it can actually cut all the way around this Baltic birch. And I think it's just really cool that this bit can literally do the same thing that this bit can do. And that's why they are both essential. I love CNC. This stuff is just awesome. So there's one thing I would definitely shy away from though. Even though this 1/8 inch bit can cut this deep, if you notice, whenever it's going back through this line, and this is a common problem with all down cut bits, it does recut all of those chips. And so this piece is held into place without us having to do any kind of clamping. Once again, use a clamp if you can. Now, I was running this at 100 inches a minute, and it is still cool. And that is because the way we designed and the geometry of this 1/8 inch bit and that ZRN coating is helping those both stay cool and stay sharper longer. So as I try to pull this out, see how compact all of that was in there? And so like if you have really thin parts, that's where I love using that 1/8 inch down cut bit. And so nice clean edges, very little tear out on the bottom, and you have a beautiful, beautiful piece. Now compare it to the 1/4 inch one that we cut out with that 1/4 inch down cut, and you can see a little difference. See how much more detail the one that the 1/8 inch bit cut out? ideally, in an ideal scenario, what I would do if I was machining is I would use the 1/8 inch bit to do the pocketing, to have that nice tight corner, and then I would come back with that 1/4 inch down cut and cut everything out. And so that's going to utilize the 1/8 inch bit for its best capabilities, which is doing nice detailed pockets, nice clean edges, and then using that 1/4 inch down cut to come around and cut out all this material and optimize both CNC bits. And so this 1/4 inch down cut and this 1/8 inch down cut, brother and sister, paired up together, are the first two essential bits. Now, let's go over to the next essential bit, the 1/8 inch upcut bit. So, why the 1/8 inch upcut bit and the 1/8 inch downcut bit? Simply because that 1/8 inch downcut bit, like I said, is good for the pocketing and good for profiling. But if you are cutting really deep like we just did, you may want to use an upcut so it ejects those chips upward. And so the reason I like to keep this in my repertoire, right, my Rolodex, for my other guy, you know, for my older, more sophisticated gentlemen out there, my Rolodex, is I'll use the 1/8 inch downcut for doing pockets, doing inlays, stuff like that. But when I want to drill a hole in something, I'll use this 1/8 inch upcut. And if you drill a hole with an 1/8 inch downcut bit, because if it can do this, this may only be 4 essential bits, but because that downcut bit, whenever it does drill holes, it burns and it's gonna have a little bit of smoke coming out and it's gonna gum up the bit because once again, all those chips are going downwards and there's nowhere for them to go. And so this 1/8 inch upcut bit, you're gonna be able to poke holes in the wood for like pre-drilling holes for signs and different stuff like that. And it's going to eject those chips out of that hole. And so now let's really just put that to the test and show you the reasons why. See how the chips are flying out as it's doing that? You're not gonna have that with a downcut 1/8 inch bit. And so, as you just saw, those chips were flying out, and you're not gonna have that with a downcut 1/8 inch bit. And so if this project we're cutting out, we wanna drill pilot holes in it or marker holes for our screws to go in, this 1/8 inch bit is an absolute must have. Now, because we have that 3/4 cutting length on there, we can actually pocket or drill all the way through this thicker material and up to 3/4 inch material, and maybe a little bit past it, but I wouldn't stray off. I know like all these bits are pretty technical and there's, you know, so many different variations. So I do have an essential bit kit on CIC Workshop. And so if you do want all 5 of these bits that we talked about in today's video, you can get them all in one complete set on CIC Workshop or individually, and I'd love for you to check it out. Now, the next bit in the essential set is going to be my second favorite bit of all time, right behind that 1/4 inch downcut, and that is going to be a solid carbide 3-flute 60-degree V-bit. I know I said a lot, so let me pull back a little bit. So this bit is a solid carbide V-bit. Why I like a solid carbide V-bit versus the other ones that have the carbide tips is that it just lasts a little bit longer. And so I really like that fact. The next thing is that it's 3 flutes. And so it has 3 different cutting edges. And so it produces a lot cleaner cut versus a 2-flute bit, those carbide tipped bits that I'm referring to. So that's why I like it to be solid carbide and 3 flutes. Now, why 60 degree and not 30 degree like this bit right here, or 90 degree like this bit right here? And so if you take a look at all 3 of these bits, what you're gonna see is all the different angles. And why I like this middle one right here a little bit more is because it's really just a happy medium. That 30-degree V-bit, like this one right here, it's a 3-flute. It's fantastic for doing inlays and really fine or deep engravings. This 90-degree V-bit is a little bit better for doing wider type of engravings, but the happy medium between them all, it produces a nice deep engraving, nice angle, and this is the exact same bit, though it wasn't ZRN coated, that I used for all of my docking stations and all of my engravings that we currently do in our shop. And the tip is really strong also on these solid carbide ones. So I'm gonna do a quick engraving right here, and we're gonna kind of start completing this little project that we're making as I'm showing you all these essential bits. So to me, the most beautiful thing about owning a CNC is when it does these V-carves and these engravings, like the whole computer system moving around right, the X and Y axis, the Z axis, all working in continuity is like the most beautiful thing ever. So this now, using that V-bit, if you can come up and see this, now this is a little knot in the Baltic birch, so don't worry about that. But look how nice and clean these edges are. There's no fuzzies because of the 3 flutes. Now, other bits may have done a good job as well, but I do know for a fact that 3 flute solid carbide 60-degree V-bit is gonna do a good job. So now I can finish this sign out, hang it on my wall in my room, and prove to my wife that I am indeed cool with that capital K. So, honey, Ryan is cool with a K. So the last bit that I want to introduce you to is the 1-inch fly cut bit. Now, why is this 1-inch fly cut essential? So one thing about this bit that I like in particular is that it's only 1 inch wide and it's on a 1/4 inch shank. Some bit manufacturers like to put a big giant fly cut on a 1/4 inch shank, and I just don't like it because of chatter and all kind of other reasons. And so I like to stick a 1-inch fly cut on a 1/4 inch shank. Now, why would you need this bit? Well, this bit, as opposed to all the other bits, you know, like once again, we had that, ideally we have the 1/8 inch bit come in, we had the 1/8 inch upcut, drill the holes, we had that 60-degree V-bit, cut all the engravings, we had that 1/4 inch downcut bit come through here and cut everything out. Why in the world would we need a 1-inch fly cut bit or 1-inch surfacing bit? Well, one is if you have a CNC, you're gonna have spoil board. And so this is a spoil board or a waste board. And a lot of times it needs to be surfaced. And so you need a bit like this to come in here and flatten everything out. Now, the other thing that it's good for is, let's just say that I'm using this project right here, and I'm gonna fill all these letters with epoxy, let's say. And so when all of these get filled with epoxy, I can either A, run them through the planer or the sander, but if you don't have any of that stuff, you can also stick this bit in here and surface all of this off right here. And so what I'm gonna do is show you how you can use this surfacing bit to just go through, and this is epoxy right here that we poured on a bad cutting board we made, and it's gonna come back by and surface off all this material. And so there's little tiny details about this that you need to know as well, but let's get to cutting and then I'll talk. So I'm gonna pop this bit out real quick, and you know, obviously I didn't do this thing perfect, but you saw the results, right? It would take a 1/4 inch bit or an 1/8 inch bit a really long time to do this. And so this bit is just made to be a mini planer and turn your CNC into that kind of machine. And so that's why I really like to have this 1-inch fly cut bit. Now, one little quick note, I do I like spinning these at a little bit lower RPMs. And so most bits I just spin at 18,000 RPMs. These, since they're a little bit bigger, I like to do around 14,000 RPMs. So do keep a note of that. If you can't control it, not a big deal, but that is one little thing I've learned over the years. Spin these just a little bit slower than those other bits. So leave a comment in the comment section below on your favorite CNC bit that you have. And if you are interested, you will get all 5 of these bits in the beginner bit set on CICworkshop.com. Once again, it is that 1/4 inch downcut, 1/8 inch downcut, 1/8 inch upcut, 60-degree 3-flute V-bit, and this 1-inch surfacing bit. So I hope this video helped. I hope you left with more knowledge than when you started. If you want more CNC beginner tips, check out this video right here. And as always, guys, remember, if you ain't cutting it close, you ain't cutting it right.